Say we talked about that Ishika grass, and there is that very super soft white kind of an inner thread, okay, the inner part of it, and you can extract it and separate it from the outer layers once you separate them. That is the physical kind of separation you do meticulously. However, so far Atma is concerned, this separation is not possible because Atma is not a physical entity. What is required and what we have to do is, in fact, a very deep spiritual inward analysis of what we are Swarupataha and what we appear as Swabhavata during our Vyavahara, during different vikaras or different modes that our mind and our activities, everything that assume as we live. We have to distinguish the Atma as completely different from all of this, right? And therefore, he says that yatha munjat isi keva matma yuktya samudritaha. From the munja, that grass, ishika evam atma. The moment you extract it. Similarly, sarira tritayat. What are these three sariras? Sukshma sarira, sthula sarira, and karana sarira. Who are the ones who are able to do this abstraction or analysis and distinguish the Atma from everything else? These are called dhiras. Dhiras are sharp, is not professorial intellect, but that spiritual sharpness with which you are able to make analysis. And that is what whole Panchadashi is going to train us to do it. We had started it and we had touched upon it, but I'll give a bit of an introduction and then we will make progress. Look at the commentary. Yatha yena prakarena munjat etan namaka trina vishesad ishika garvastam komalam trinam yuktva vahir avarakatvena titanam sthulapatranam vibhajana lakshana upayena samudhriyate. This is the drishtanta example. The way you are able to extract that ishika, which is out of a certain grass, it has a name called munja, and there are bahir avarakas, means external layers which wrap it up, which cover it, and you remove them. Sthula patrana, the gross leaves which are physically available. The inner one is also physically available, but it's very super soft and very sukshma, very subtle. Vivajana lakshana upayena, you have to separate it. Similarly, evam atmapi yuktya. Now, this is not a physical separation. This is that intellectual, that sharp spiritual analysis you do. Yuktya anvaya vitireka lakshana upayena. So you do anvaya vitireka. We have already discussed what is anvaya and what is vitireka. There are two ways to look at it. Here, Anvaya Vetireka is Anuvriti and Vyavriti. The Atma is Anuvrita in all three states of Jagrata Avastha, Swapna Avastha, and Susutti Avastha. That Atma is ever present, all pervasive. Whereas the Jagrata Avastha and associated ego identification with Vishwa or your activities, they vanish when you are in dream state. In dream state, there are certain mental activities. You see some dreams. And then when you go to deep sleep state, they also are not there. There in the Sukshma Sarira, you have both Pranamaya Kosha, Manamaya Kosha, and the Vijnanamaya Kosha. We have already discussed that yesterday. Then you go to deep sleep state, you have Ajnanavana. Aham Sukham Aswapsam Na Kinchid Avedisam. That you say when you wake up. I didn't know I had a wonderful sleep. But even though you have Ajnanavana, when you go to Samadhi Avastha, which is an interlude between two mental processes, at that particular interlude, there is also no memory of not experiencing or Ajnan Anubhava. You don't have. The Samadhi is kind of a null state, so to say. There's a null state where you don't even remember that you didn't know. You didn't have any experience. That also you don't remember. That's a kind of null and void state. Atma is very much there. It's null state, but it's not void. It's not devoid of the presence of the self. That self is ever present. Therefore, in Samadhi Avastha, the Susupti again becomes Vyaprita. It is not there. It fails to enter there. Then we had the example of the Samanta Rajas, the titular heads of different feudatory states. And then you have a real king who collects the taxes through these small feudatory kings who are addressed as kings, but they cannot go beyond their territory, whereas the boss can go to any territory. So that is the Atma. Now he's saying, you try to do this Anvaya Vyatireka and Lakshana Upayana. Why Lakshana? I will discuss that today. What is Lakshana Vritti? Upayana, Sarira Tritiyat, Purvoktas, Sarira Tritiyat. What we have already discussed, the three Sariras, Sthula, Sukshma, and Karana Sarira, Dhirehi. Who is that Dhira? Brahmacharyadi Sadhana Samparnehi. So, the qualification in the Anubandha Chatushtaya, what are the four pillars of starting any grantha, any kind of discussion? You have Vishaya and a Prayojana. This would be a subject matter. Why you want to know it? That is Prayojana. Because you want liberation, you want moksha. That's why you're reading Panchadashi, because you want to figure out what it means to have liberation. It could also be simple curiosity. But generally, this is Atma Vishaka Grantha because you're looking for some enlightenment. That's why you're reading it. Otherwise, you could read more interesting stuff. Comics could be anything other than this. And then, can everybody understand Panchadasi? Initially, you may also be finding it a little tough to crack, isn't it? Because of the technical language and you require a lot of focus. So, Adhikara. Adhikara is one intellectual preparation. The other one is your psychic preparation. What is Adhikara? So they will say Viveka and Vairagya, Samadama, the Satka Sampatti, Samparnaha, Mumukshitva. These are the four sadhanas that you should have already completed. Viveka is Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka. Vairagya means Iha Mutra Falabhoga Viragaha. You should not be interested in either material happiness on earth or in the happiness of Swarga. I want to go to Swarga Sukha after death. Both are temporary and both bind you with a chain of cyclic reactions. Therefore, they are not the route or the gateway to liberation. And then what is the Samadama, the Satka Sampatti? Shama, Manonigraha, Dama is Indriya Nigraha. Then you have Uparati and Titiksha and Shraddha and Samadhan. Uparati is kind of withdrawal. Titiksha is tolerance. We have all discussed it earlier. And then Shraddha is having faith in the text, having respectful orientation towards the advice of the gurus and the sastras. Samadhana is that equanimity that you achieve. And all this become useless if you do not have genuine desire. It's like you dress up like a groom and you have all your friends invited. And I've heard this has become a kind of a joke in big cities where they are not marrying, but they have a marriage party. I've heard, I read it somewhere. Now they are having these marriage parties where a boy and a girl, it's all a joke, huh? And they have a lot of money. So they'll hire an event manager and they will arrange a marriage party where there will be some people who will behave like a girl side, some people will behave like groom side, they'll all guess, and it's essentially a party. It's a thematic party. You have fun, go home. Blow some money. I have food and booze. No, I'm not. And all this. These are the dramas where you get in. That doesn't give you liberation. You must have, if you are not marrying, what is the party for? You don't come back as a married person with a wife or a husband. You just go to the party and come back. Similarly, you might do all arrangements for Gyan Sadhana, but if you don't have genuine desire for liberation, aspiration, desire is a wrong word here, you don't have that genuine desire, aspiration for liberation, what is this preparatory sadhanas? They become fruitless. There's no point in it. So you can become a big guru, big influencer, but you yourself may not be interested in liberation. You won't get any liberation. Therefore, if you are that kind of an adhi, so he's saying samadhamadi sadhana sampannaha, right? So brahmacharya means you will include everything. Sadhana sampannehi adhikarivihi samadhritaha prithakkritaha chet sa param brahmiva jayate. Now brahmavid brahmiva bhavati. It is this, there is no sadhya thing. There is no sadhya kalapana. is sadhya, you want to get something. You will do sadhana to get there. Now, actually, the Shastra says you are that. You are verily Brahman. Then why do you look for Brahman? Is Brahman sadhya? Anything which is sadhya cannot be permanent. Anything born out of some kind of an activity cannot have permanent value because activity itself is impermanent. You cannot have something permanent out of an impermanent process. So then what is Brahman? Brahman is permanent, eternal, universal. Then what is the sadhana? Sadhana is always impermanent. No, sadhana is a preparation to remove, like it's the example which is given in Vedanta is a sandalwood which is kind of immersed in mud and therefore it has lost its smell, and as you clean it, it regains its smell. You mean it had lost its smell? No, it was not evident. It was submerged, suppressed. Our spirituality, our divinity is suppressed by layers of faulty thinking. Our purity, our Suddha Buddha Mukta Swabhava Swarupa, which we are not being able to accept that truth, which Shastra verily makes it very obvious because we are clinging to inferior interpretations of who we are. Because there are so many marketing guys from different schools of thought and different lifestyles. They want to sell their product and they'll come and do this. This is going to give you enlightenment. This is going to give you happiness. So what Shastra says, they are not selling. They're selling their own product. Shastra says you are verily liberated. You are kind of thinking you are in a prison or you are in a cage. Your essential nature is divine. So these are imaginary nets, imaginary shackles, which are supposed to be binding you. You can fly. The example they gave is of a bird. And you have a bird, so these bird keepers, you must have seen them in India, Asia. So these birds, they first get rid of the bird and then they'll put it in a cage. Then they will tie a small thread to one of the legs of these bird, and the bird is allowed to fly. It will try to fly, but then after flying a little, it realizes it can't go. So it gets tired and returns to the cage in the evening. It happens a few times. After that, the bird is convinced that it cannot go anywhere. Once the bird keeper realizes the bird has now accepted this is her or his destiny, its destiny, then it keeps the door open, even when the bird doesn't fly away. The bird is now convinced that it cannot fly. So these are the birds. If you buy from bird keepers and you want to liberate them on your birthday, you want to give them freedom, you'll be sadly surprised that many of these birds actually don't fly away. With a lot of difficulty, they go and sit somewhere for a long time. Then, luckily, if they see other birds like them, they may regain strength and they may fly. In some occasions, some eventualities, as somebody alerted me not to release birds like that, he told me that cats have a very sharp pair of eyes, and for them, these kinds of birds who are inhibited about flying are easy prey. They'll come and attack and kill them. So you must know where to release the bird, and then the bird should be able to fly, because otherwise you leave it and the cat comes and she has a breakfast. Coming back to our point, Swarupa is pure and divine. Liberation is essentially about self-recognition. That is the sadhana Vedanta teaches us. How do we do it? The Shastra Vakya is Tattvamasi, you are that. And Etaveta Grantha Sandarbhena Safalasya Tattvajanasya Nirupitatvad Uttara Grantha Bhagasya Anarambha Prasanga iti Asankhya Tad Arambha Siddhaye Brutanukathana Purvakam Uttara Granthasya Tatparyam Aha. Now, this is an introduction to the next sloka, but we have already discussed it yesterday. Somebody might say, okay, Panchakosha Viveka is done, and therefore you are liberated. What is the need for more discussion? He says, no. You have to go step by step. We gave you a trailer, Panchakosha Viveka. That will not essentially liberate you. Even if you know that you are different from the Panchakoshas, yeah, that is good enough for the one who has already done a lot of sadhana. But there are different steps of having theoretical clarity, and therefore you go step by step. Therefore, we went to the verse number 43, we have started it. Paraparatmano revam yuktya sambhavite kata tattvamasyaदिवाक्यैसा bhagatyagena lakshate. Para and apara, jiva and ishvara, para para, atmanoho evam. So paratma and aparatma, you have that vishuddha sattva sampanna, the pure thing. Or para means the suddha atma, means without any upadhis, beyond ishvara. Aparatma, okay, aparatma can be ishvara. You have the Karya Brahma, Hiranyagarbha, these are all referred to as Brahmans or Atmas only. Even in Vedanta, Atma word can refer to your body, it can refer to your mind, it can refer to your Indriyas in some Upanishads, Atma can refer to yourself, Atma can refer to your family members, depends on the context in which you are using that word. So the moment these two words are there, para and apara, we are essentially talking about two layers who are kind of superimposed brands or labels on that Atma, which is pure and transparent. Evam uktya sambhavita ekata. This is how you make it realizable for us. You understand it. How do I do it? Tattvamasyadi vakyehi. So there are several such mahavakyas. Prajnanam Brahma, Ayam Atma Brahma, Tattvamasi, you are that. Tattvamasi is a very interesting, just Tat Tvam Asi. Tat means that, Tvam means you are, that you are. What is that? Tat is Brahman, you are the Jivatma. So there is Vachya, I'll go step by step. What does Tat mean? Tat, Vachyartha means Ishvara. What is Vachya? You see, when I'm saying something, I say a cell phone. So the moment I say cell phone, this word you heard, right? And there is a Vachya. That is what is said, Vachya. This is the Vachya. This is the Vachaka, the word. Vachya Vachaka Sambandha. Or this is Pada, that word, cell phone. And this is Artha, Padartha, Pada Artha Sambandha. Now the word is called Sakti, or the ability to convey meaning is there in the word. So that is called Sakti, which is inherent in a Pada. This is our science of language in India. Saktam Padam. The Pada has that Sakti to convey some meaning. And that is there where Sakhya is this object that it is referring to. Sometimes we have different ways in which you use different words to refer. This is in Western philosophy, is called correspondence theory of truth. The truth proposition, you say all human beings are mortal. It's a statement, right? There should be a correspondence between this truth proposition, this statement, and what happens in reality. Similarly, here, whenever you are using a word, there must be something that it is referring to. If I use a word and there is nothing that it refers to, it becomes an absurd word, isn't it? What does it mean? If I say da da da, what does it mean? There must be something that it means. Otherwise, this word will not have any artha. So there must be something. So you have two ways in which we can talk about this relationship. I hope it's not getting too theoretical. One is connotative, the other one is denotative. You're just referring to describing it, like hand, finger, palm, right? Simple. Then something which is a little conceptual, it's on the tip of my tongue, if you say. Can you tell me the answer to this question? Sometimes you say it's on the tip of my tongue. Are you actually saying there is something on the tip of your tongue? You are indirectly referring to something which you know you are in control of it, but you are not being able to spell it out right now. So in language, we are different ways in which we try to establish a relationship between what we say and what is there. So when we have an indirect way of leading us to the meaning of what is being said, that is called Lakshana Vritti. So one is Vachyartha. You say hand, it's hand. But sometimes what you say directly doesn't refer to that. Okay. So if a person says uh, to another person, you are saying something about another person. So you say Gangayam Ghoshaha. Where is your house? Gangayam Ghosha. That house is right on Ganges. In Orissa, you go to the seaside town near Berhampur called Gopalpur. It's written Gopalpur on sea. What does it mean? Can there be a township on the sea? No. It means it's in the banks of the Bay of Bengal. You have a small town called Gopalpur. And the banks of the sea. It's not the banks of the river. That's what it is referring to, saying Gangayam Goshaha. It's on the Ganges. Means on the banks of the Ganges. That is Lakshana Vritti. So through Lakshana Vritti, why is it so important? Because when you say you are God, it's very confusing. Because there is a lot of contradiction between who you are and who is God. All of us are human beings. I mentioned that yesterday. We are Kinchit Gyan, so we know a little. God is Sarvagya. And we are Alpa Saktiman, Kiyat Saktiman, he is Sarva Saktiman. So there is no comparison. He is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. And we, a tiny bit of it, all three in us. We can be comparable. But Shastra says, and Shastra cannot lie, there must be some hidden meaning. And we have to reach there. Okay. So these are the three critical things that one has to keep in mind. And then it becomes easy when we have these three things in mind. And what are these things? So, in order to make sense, now that you are saying that this is a little difficult thing to understand, the science of meaning that I was mentioning, hermeneutics. So, how do you derive the meaning of anything? I was talking about yesterday. Upakramopasangharo vabhyaso parvataphalam arthovado vapatti lingam tatparya nirmaya. So there are 6 filters or chinnas or indicators of how to deduce meaning of any text, any Vedic text, how to understand it. Upakrama, upasanghara. Upakrama is introduction. So there is a mention of it. Upasanghara, again, he's saying, so for example, in the Tattvamasi Vakya, and there are 9 times he says this, the father is teaching his son what is the Brahman, what is Atma. He tells his son, or he keeps him hungry for a while. And then after some time, he tells his son that, then son, he asks him some slokas, and the son is not being able to say because he's very hungry and he has no memory, he doesn't remember everything. Then what happens to the son? The father, after 2 days, asks him to go to your mother, ask for some food. The son goes to the mother, and mother gives him 2 glasses of milk. And then takes rest. After 2 hours, goes to the father. His father says, okay, you remember the slokas? He's being able to say it. Then he says that you meditate on the Arna is Brahman, Tattvamasi, Swetaketu, you are that. And similarly asks him, bring me a bucket of water. The son brings him a bucket of water. The father brings him, rock salt, and he says, okay, let's put it in the water. The son puts it in the water. And he says, where did the, this whole rock piece of salt vanish? He says, no, it's not visible anymore. He says, why don't you taste the water? They taste the water. Then it's salty. Okay, he says, taste the bottom part of the bucket of water. Same thing, same taste, it's salty. So where has the salt gone? It's all pervasive. Look at how symbolically they are trying to explain how the Atma is all pervasive. It doesn't have to be visible. The example is, you put some salt in water, it's ever present. All parts of the water bucket is not visible to you. Only with test you know that it is there. Otherwise, you wouldn't know. Like atmosphere, you don't see it unless there are some movement and there is some kind of pollution, and you don't see otherwise anything, isn't it? Now, similarly, the Atma is invisible and all pervasive. So he says that 9 times, saying, and then similarly, he says, okay, bring a fruit, and the son brings a fruit, and he says, okay, split it into 2 parts, and finally the seed, he says, split it into several parts. What do you see? He says, nothing. Then he says, Sadeva Somya Idamagra Asid, Ekameva Dvitiyam. So there are different ways in his saying, where is that? Where is that gone? You see, invisible. Out of that, this whole sansara has come. That means something which is very subtle. If that causality is there, it is able to project and manifest. In different ways, different stories, the Upanishads give us the insight to meditate on the Atman, the Brahman. So what is this Upakrama and Upasanghara? You see how the whole discussion had started and how the discussion ended. You look at the commonality, then you say, okay, this is the way to think about it. Then Abhyasa. Abhyasa is repetition. The Tattvamasi again and again is being said. So there is Ekatva of Jiva and a Brahma, because different examples are being given. It's not about the physical being, absolutely. It's about that spirit, that consciousness, that both the consciousness which pervades both Ishvara as well as Jiva. These are all parameters which are differentiating Jiva from Ishvara according to Advaita Vedanta. I'll also touch upon the Vedavada, which is slightly different from this, because they have their own meaning of what Tattvamasi means. And then in addition to that, when you do that, so apurvata phalam. Apurvata means it should be something new, something which is not available through any other pramana. What is other pramana? So you know that in winter blankets are good to protect you from cold. Will Vedas mention about it? No, Vedas will not talk about it. Why? Because pratyakshata you can know it, through an own experience you can know it. So the Vedas will not waste their time discussing what you can know through any other proof. What you cannot establish through any other proof, Veda talks about it. Apurvata. Phalam, it should not be nirarthaka, should be some implication. And then what? Arthavada. What is Arthavada? Arthavada is Nindar Stutiparaka Vakya. Vajrahasta Purandaraha. The hands of Indra, he's holding Vajra in his hands. So, because that is, it has to be any Vakya in the Vedas, because you do not know through any other proof you know this. There is another Vakya called Adityo Yupaha. So there are this Agnishomya. There are different rites and rituals, Vedic rituals. One of them is that Agnishoma or Shoma Yaga. And there is one prakarana, one context, and one set of activities or karmas in which there is something called Agnishomya Yaga. Agnishomyam Pasumalavita. That is the Vedic adage or statement. So there is some rule for an animal sacrifice. How do you sacrifice the animal? So there will be a wooden stump. If you go to some Shakti Pithas, even now, there are certain places where animals are sacrificed. So there you have that wooden stump on which that poor animal is tied and then it's sacrificed. And it is justified in the Vedic statement saying that Kratvartha Hingsa is not Hingsa. You cannot do any Hingsa. You cannot kill anyone to eat. So non-vegetarianism is absolutely a no-no. You cannot kill to eat. But at the same time, you can kill the animal for a spiritual purpose. And then that animal gets liberated. But the Sankhya people didn't accept it. And they said that if you're killing that animal, even though it's going to heaven, it doesn't know, it might just go having cursed you, and then you will incur the karma of having caused pain to a living being. And that's one of the reasons. If you look at Sankaracharya, he is very much against the karma kandis. All these karmas, he thinks these are problematic because the Upanishads are meditative. They are not about karma kandas. That is the first part of it. Interestingly, this whole violent rituals is not unique to the Vedic literature. If you go into the ancient Greek philosophy, they were the Orpheans, and the Orphic rituals also involved a lot of these blood rites. And different ancient cultures also had these blood rites sacrifices, like in Islam. You have, he sacrificed his own son, and so also in Christianity. So you have this whole idea of sacrifice. There is a French cultural historian who has done some good work. I'm not immediately being able to remember his name, but he talks about how sacrifices were like to deal with the evil in a community. So you are externalizing it. So you sacrifice it, so you are flushing out the evil in your community life. There's some interpretation in that. So the Aditya Yupa, when it is mentioned, the sun is this log of wood. No, it is central to that right. That is why this is Arthavada. There are many slokas in Vishnu Sahasranama or in Bhagavad Gita. If you read, they would say, and if you do, even if you take Lord Vishnu's name in one, and you are liberated. That doesn't happen. That is Arthavada, Stuti Parakat, in order to motivate you. Similarly, there are a lot of Ninda Paragavakyas. Like, for example, you went to the feast thrown by one of your relatives with whom your mother doesn't have a very good relationship, or your wife. And then you came back and she said, okay, sit for lunch. You said, no, I had lunch anyway. You said, no, I had gone to that aunt's place. And, oh, really? When you had poison? Jahar kha lete, wahi jane se. Because she had misbehaved with your mom and she's not very happy with it. She wants her son to take poison? No, absolutely not. That is Ninda Parakavakya. That is Arthavada, right? This is only to drive home a point. And then Upapatti is that Yukti. So these are the 6 ways what to reject. You have to find out, okay, this is Arthavada, this is not real, and this is the Yukti part. Okay, so these are different ways in which, with this Sarvidha Linga, you can do Tatparya Nirnaya. But what if the relationship is not emerging as direct? Then you have to do Lakshana. And then what is this Lakshana Vritti and how to do it? I just mentioned to you that Gangayam Ghoshaha, it's on Gopalpur and sea. The way it's on the banks of the, or it's really there in the banks of the sea, Bay of Bengal. Similarly, you have a house on the banks of Ganges, you say Gangayam Ghoshaha. So tell us a little about Lakshana, somebody would say. In very brief, in 1 or 2 sentences, I'm trying to conclude, Lakshana is of 3 kinds. It's called Sakshya Sambandho Lakshana. When something enables establishment of a relationship with what is signified. You know, what is signified, that word. What is that artha with which you are being able to establish some some relationship, that is called Lakshana Vritti. There are 3 types of Lakshanas. One is Jahad Lakshana, when you sacrifice the main meaning to think about something which is not there. Like, for example, Gangayam Ghoshaha. What is the direct meaning? It is on the Ganges, but it's not on the Ganges, it's on the banks of the Ganges. So you are sacrificing the main meaning which is communicated to you through this sentence, Gangayam Ghoshaha. Similarly, there is something called Ajahada Lakshana. You don't sacrifice, you add something else. Kakebhya Dadirakhyatam. The mother tells to the son, oh son, I'm going for a bath. The old days, they used to go to the river. And then the mother has put some milk and curd and stuff like that in the courtyard. And the little boy, 5-year-old, is sitting there. She gives him a small stick and says, oh son, be on the watch. Kakebhya Dadirakhyatam. Protect this milk and curd and everything from the praying eyes of the crows or the birds. Crows can come, and then you can have even cats, even dogs. So protect it. So when the mother says Kakebhya, is saying protected from the crows, but the son also protects the milk or the curd or whatever from the cats and maybe snakes, maybe dogs, right? Protected. So Ajahad means include X, what is stated, but also include X1, X2, X3, which are not stated, but relevant. That is Ajahada. Jahad means Tyaga Purvaka. Ajahad means Atyaga purvak means without having tyaga, means you add. And there is something called jahada ajahada. There is tyaga, there is no tyaga. What is it? It's called a bhaga tyaga lakshana. Just imagine you had a friend, and the friend was a tiny, cute boy. And then suddenly you meet him, or let's imagine why a boy, you can also include a little girl that you are classmates, you are wonderful friends. And then you meet her or him. Now, and she's grown up and her children are grown up and she's a different person. And she has a husband and she's wearing a sari or a kurta pajama and she used to giggle and play and she used to be very naughty. No, she's very responsible and is a very controlling type and very good, caring, compassionate. She used to be very selfish and naughty and argumentative as a little girl. But you recognize there is some birthmark and you immediately recognize this is my classmate. She was a little girl and you are a little boy. After 35 years, things have changed. So when you say Soyam Devadattaha, it is this little boy that you know who had no mustache, no beard, nothing. That Devadatta is this guy who has beard and mustache and grown up and he has a wife and children. So Ayam Devadattaha. Saha Ayam Devadattaha. Saha is that little boy. Ayam Devadattaha. And who is he? He's a Purushaha, grown up guy. He has a wife, he was a little boy. How do you have this? You have that tatta and idanta. So you are doing that childhood aspect, you sacrifice. It's not relevant because he's not there. His father's name stays. He stays. Om Devadattaha, he's grown up and all, you sacrifice. What do you keep? You see that Devadatta of that guy. So I am Devadattaha. That Devadatta remains. The physical facts, the social stature, the appearance, the qualities, the pay packs and everything, they become irrelevant. That is how you get rid of a part of that, what is being stated, in order to achieve a equivalence and you establish some meaning about Soyam Devadatta when you say this, right? So there is a bit of memory and there is a bit of anubhava. Together you are saying Soyam Devadatta. That is Bhagatyaga Lakshana. How is it relevant to Tattvamasi? You would ask me this question. So when you say Tattvamasi, he will mention all that. I'm just mentioning very quickly to give you a very good introduction. When you say Soyam Devadatta, similarly Tattvamasi, obviously Tvam is a limited self, limited edition of pure consciousness. And that's a grand edition of pure consciousness, which is. He's saying, look here, first let's get rid of this papaja and punyaja karma as a result of which good and bad qualities in you. Get rid of them. These are upadhis, avidya upadhis. Let's remove what remains. When that boy is sitting in deep meditation, there is no. Of course, you can say that because of his good punya karma, he has very good concentration. But just think about that pure consciousness. You remove all layers, like peeling the onion. What remains is pure consciousness. Similarly, Ishvara, because you have what? Malina Sattva Samparna Jivatma. Remove Malina Sattva. What remains? Only consciousness. Because this Maya is Trigunatmika. So you have that Malina Sattva means an overload of Raga and Dvesha, Rajas and Tamas. With that, the Sattva is kind of diminished. That's what we are. Our spirituality is diminished. And this state of being diminished is essentially Sopadika. It's a label which is pasted on us. If we can remove it through sadhana, what remains is pure consciousness. Go to Ishvara. Who is he? Suddha Sattva Samparna Maya, isn't it? Maya Upahita Chaitanya. He has the level of Maya. We have the level of Avidya. Avidya is overload of Rajas and Tamas. And he has Maya, means pure presence of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, ineffective. They have to be there, Trigunatmika Maya. But they have no, they are just symbolically there. Delta tends to 0. So that particular person is called Ishvara. But let's go beyond this Trigunatmika Maya and its labeling. Remove that label. What remains? Pure consciousness. The Shaguna Brahma becomes Nirguna Brahma. The Nirguna Brahma, the words become irrelevant. What remains is pure consciousness. That pure consciousness, this pure consciousness, there's no difference. Ghatakasha and Mahakasha. If I say, let's imagine this phone, and I say phone akasha, the space within this phone, break the phone, what happens to the phone akasha? It was always there, the Mahakasha. So Jiva and Ishvara, the Bheda is Sopadhika because of the label, because of the branding. The purity of it is one and the same thing. Now, you would feel challenged that your bhakti is being affected by this kind of Vedanta. That is why I just wanted to alert you that the Ramanuja Sampradaya, they talk about Vishishtadvaita. So this is not unreal. There is nothing called Maya or anything. Maya they accept, but in a different way. So Ishvara, we are tiny parts of it. We are like Kana Brahmas. And the Aveda is there, Jiva Brahma. They use the word Aprithakva Siddhi. But they don't say there is a non-qualified equality. They don't talk about non-qualified non-dualism. They talk about qualified non-dualism. There is monism, but it's qualified. The Dvaitavadis would say, no, there is Veda, Jiva and Brahma, because bhakti will become difficult to explain if Jiva and Brahman become one. They would say, what about a state of devotion where the Jiva no more thinks is different, only Brahman is there? You remember that famous statement of Kavi, that gully is so narrow, either Uparwala is there or you are there. Both of you cannot be there. That is beautiful Advaita. Either ego is there or Brahman is there. Both cannot exist. But the bhakti school somehow, like for example, Achintya Veda Veda of Sri Chaitanya, they would say, no, there is unity, but don't confuse that Sankara kind of unity. But Shankaracharya says that Brahma Satya Jagana Mithya Jiva Brahmiva Na Paraha is none other than Brahman. Why? Because there are a lot of Shruti Vakyas. So Neha Nanaste Kinchana. The person who thinks that there is Nana, he'll go to hell. Sadeva Brahma idam eva advitiyam, Sadeva Brahma idam agra asid, Asadeva Brahma somya idam agra asid, Ekam eva advitiyam. That word Ekam eva advitiyam. When you say this, what is Jiva, what is Brahman? There has to be one pure unified field of consciousness, ultimately. Now, you will ask me a question. Out of this unified field of consciousness, how did you get this Srishti Vaichitriya? Yeah, that will be explained. We'll go to that. There is a chapter of whole of Panchadashi, all these profound questions about creation and about manifestation and the doubts that we have about who is God, why he is doing, what he is doing, all these will be answered as we progress towards that. So this is how he's saying that. So he's saying, Paraparatmanor evam yuktya sambhavite kata tattvamashyadi vakyesa bhagatyagena lakhyate. So I've kind of summarized the 4-5 verses in advance for you. Parapareti evam mukta prakarena. In this style, parapara atmanaha. Para is tat, tvam is apara. Parapara atmanaho tattvam padarthayoho. Tat and tvam, these are two padas. And what are the arthas behind it? Of these, Paramatma, Jivatmanoho, Paramatma in Jivatma, Aparatma. Ekata means abhinata. So ekata means abhinata. Yuktya. You have to do through yukti, through analysis. What is that? Lakshana Samya Pradarsanadi Upayena. So you will see through Lakshana Vritti that they are same. Upayena Sambhavita means Angikarita. You would be able to understand it. Not only assume, but fully understand it. Gata means sa avinnata tattvamashyadi vakyehi spastam. So how do you get there? By analyzing the meaning of these philosophical great mahavakyas called tattvamasya. Tattvamashyadi vakyehi. There are other vakyas like this. Spastam bhagatyagena. Through bhagatyaga lakshanaya bhagatyagena. Birudhangsa parityagena. Birudhangsa parityaga. The little Devadatta had no mustache, no beard, was a naughty boy, and all the time playing. This guy is very sensible. He's a senior manager in a big corporate. So, Birudhangsa parityagena lakhyate lakshanaya vritya bodhyate. So, you will be able to reach the lakshartha. So, we will stop here and we'll resume it next week. So, we were able to do only one verse, but we covered the next 5 verses. We'll be just rushing through them when we start. There's another class. That's how I have to stop here. So We'll do the Santi mantras, and any questions you can ask. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namaha. Om. Is there any questions? Anyone has any questions? Okay, so we'll meet